Good morning. Many of us in the metropolitan Pittsburgh community were quite disturbed and dismayed with the beating of unarmed former Kappa High School Viola student and honor student Jordan Miles by 3 fully armed police officers on the night of January 12th, 2010, while walking between the homes of his mom and his grandmother. On Tuesday, January 10th, members of BPEP, the Black Political Empowerment Project, escorted Kappa High School students to this very spot. And we, along with representatives of the Black and White Reunion, spoke at this podium regarding the incident involving the beating of Jordan Miles. We also addressed City Council very passionately that morning, and the Kappa students, both black and white, spoke so eloquently about Jordan Miles, describing him as truly one of the best, brightest, and nicest students at the High School. That morning, BPEP and the Black and White Reunion, as a matter of fact, this gentleman, along with the students, we walked into that office and we delivered a letter to the mayor and to the chief of police calling for reform and expressing our upset. That afternoon, Reverend Burgess called me at home and stated, because of what happened that day, and particularly because of the comments of the young people from Kappa, those comments touched his heart, and he said that I will begin the legislative process that you requested. And he, in fact, did so. We have, since that time, assisted in the passage of 3 pieces of legislation. We're giving you a handout this morning of a brief summary of that legislation. But since January 10, we're happy to announce January 2010 that we passed number 2010-0107, which calls for video cameras in the police cars. The purpose of that is that there will be a video history of a lot of the interchanges between the police and the community that document who did what, when, and how. It's not just on the word of the police, nor on the words only of the citizens. We also passed this past year 2010-0108, which calls for the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. This is something the BPEP and the Black and White Reunion have worked on for years, trying to get accreditation. This piece of legislation called for the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police to be under PLEAC, the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission standards. Those standards, by the way, came in response. I'd like all the other folks in the community to come forward and stand with us. That legislation came in response to the not the Jordan Miles, but the Johnny E. Gamage death of October 12, 1995. The response of a Republican governor, Tom Ridge, who saw the wisdom of changing police behavior and police standards. Those are voluntary standards that he proposed statewide, which have been adopted by many police bureaus throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but not as yet in Pittsburgh. So that legislation called for the PLEAC standards to be adopted, and that process has been engaged for some time. The third piece is 2010-0109, which requires paid administrative leave in applicable incidents, so that some of the police officers who are involved involved in negative incidents with the public are taken off the street. Today, we are joined by representatives of the Police Accountability, APA, the Black Political Empowerment Project, the Black and White Reunion, and we're hoping to have a couple of the high school students who I'm told will be here today. And the ACLU is represented by Indymedia. The introduction of today's bill, 2010-0234, which our community partners have called for, that we've called the Police Reporting and Accountability Bill, expands tremendously the initial legislation proposal of Reverend Burgess. Today, with this council meeting, including the council meeting, post-agenda meeting of February 10th, and the council meeting of February 15th in Homewood, the various meetings that this gentleman has been involved in and his staff, the meetings we've been in, including a 2-hour session with some of the council members on Monday and their staff. This is probably at least the 15th session on this one piece of legislation. That's how serious we think this is. Before I forget, let me hold up something. This is from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Tuesday, June 14th. City offers to settle Jordan Miles' lawsuit. Our hope is that there are no more headlines like this, because they won't be needed, because the police will be performing in a more professional way. The police will be properly trained. The police will know that there is accountability. The police will know that their reports will say what they've done. It will give us a profile for our Pittsburgh Police Department. And one of the things that we're pushing in this bill today that's very important, extremely important, and we shared this with the council people on Monday. Part of this bill calls for reporting of pat-downs and frisk. Now, why is that important? Because often those are incidents that nothing particularly happens. There are no charges. Well, I'll tell you why the community feels the passage of that piece is very important. Community folks, please come up. It's very important. If a police officer is having a bad day, if a police officer does not like black people, does not like people who look gay, does not like white people with long hair, does not like people whatever, Asian people, whatever, and they just want to harass people and stop them, frisk them, pat them down, have them lay on the ground and say, okay, well, you're okay, go. At this point, there is no commitment, there is no regulation that says they must report pat-downs and stops and say, why did they stop someone? So it takes away some of that attitudinal opportunity to harass the public. And hopefully adds a new level of professionalism on the part of the police and lets them think twice, if not thrice, before they stop people inappropriately or unnecessarily. We're also in this bill saying they need to take a look at how they manage officers who are drinking while off the job, on drugs while off the job, and maybe mixing alcohol and prescription drugs and acting in inappropriate fashions and pulling out guns and shooting people or beating up people, and then under the cover of, I'm an officer of the law, when doing those illegal and inappropriate acts off duty. So we want administration of officers while on duty and while off duty, so that the officers know they have a responsibility to protect and serve at every moment of the day and to act in a professional manner at every moment. of the day. One of the things that we're asking for on the part of the collective groups who have been so serious and so committed in this effort, we want Pittsburgh to be a national leader in police accountability. We want Pittsburgh, which has on several occasions been called the most livable city in the nation, we want it to be the most livable city for the administration of justice. We want it to be the most livable city for police-community relations. And we are far from that at this very moment. But the legislation effort of Reverend Burgess, which has been supported by council, the last three pieces. So we commend not only Reverend Burgess, who took the initiation of the effort, but we commend all of council who has stood with us in majority fashion, at least, to pass three significant pieces of legislation. We're hopeful that they will stand with us today as Reverend Burgess introduces his original piece of legislation with several amendments that were initiated by community representatives, including intimate involvement of the ACLU, intimate involvement of Earl Miller, a great attorney, Vic Volchek of the ACLU, David Harris, a respected and renowned expert in police and community relations out of the University of Pittsburgh, who's renowned nationally, and all of our community partners. Now what's interesting is, and some of you may have forgotten, that even the mayor of our city has cried out on the issues of misconduct on those paid to protect and serve. In the Thursday, May 6, 2010 edition of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the mayor was quoted as saying, "The increasing trend of firefighters and police officers being involved in unacceptable incidents is really becoming frustrating." When asked about the arrest of police Detective Bradley Walker following a reported road rage incident that had occurred on the preceding Saturday, the mayor also stated in that same article, "We've disciplined officers, we've disciplined firefighters, we fired them, terminated them, only to find that they won their jobs back in arbitration." He went on to say that the police union and the fire union need to recognize that this kind of activity cannot continue. I think that all of us who stand here this morning echo those comments of our mayor. Quote, "This kind of activity cannot continue," end of quote. We also say very loudly and clearly that it is time for the City of Pittsburgh to quit having to pay out the citizens of Pittsburgh because they have experienced abuse at the hands of Pittsburgh police officers who are abusing and misusing their awesome police powers. I remind you that every officer has the power to arrest you. They have handcuffs, they have batons, they have tasers, they have the right or the possibility, not the right, the possibility of shooting you and the possibility of killing you. That is as awesome a power as a human being can have against another human being. That level of power must be taken seriously and used very professionally. The formula for positive police-community relations is responsive and responsible policing. I'd like to have Reverend Burgess as the one who will be introducing his original piece of legislation with the community amendments, and who will introduce the other three pieces of legislation to speak. And we'll have Brandy Fisher, from the chairwoman now of the Alliance for Police Accountability, who has, with the partners from APA, done such a tremendous job in keeping this in the focus of the community with the rallies. There'll be another one on Saturday, June 25th at 1 o'clock, from Freedom Corner down to this building, or down to the county courthouse. We will also hear from Bob Maddock on the representatives from the early days of the Black and White Reunion. And by the way, APA came out of the Jordan Mouse incident. The Black and White Reunion came out of the death of Johnny Gambles. Fortunately, APA did not come out of the death of Jordan Mouse.
Yes.
Reverend?
Certainly, we've been grateful to be able to work with all of our community partners to author and successfully pass three pieces of legislation. department. I fundamentally believe that we must have both the police and the public working collaboratively together in order to reduce crime and to promote public safety. Unfortunately, there is in certain communities a disconnect between policing and their view of their safety. And so we must do everything we can to make accountability measures so that the community feels confident that the police are working on their best interests. Because I believe that all communities count. All communities deserve dignity and respect and should feel safe walking in their neighborhoods. And we are inviting the police, as always, to work with us as partners, because the best public safety is always when the community and the police are working collaboratively together. Again, I appreciate all the community partners who have rallied, in particular Tim Stevens as their leader. We have spent almost a year now working together on these initiatives, and I look forward to a robust conversation and discussion in council today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randy. Randy Fisher, the chairperson of APA Accountability, Police Accountability.
I'm not going to echo many things that have already been stated. What I will say is the most important part of the legislation, I think there's three very specific points. One is so that we, the taxpayers in the city, are not paying for the misconduct of police officers, and that instead the police officers are paying for that themselves. We have funneled out millions and millions and millions of dollars just within the last 5 years to pay for their behavior. So this legislation will put intact to regulate that. Two would be the most important part of this legislation to me personally, which would be the pedestrian stops and frisks, which lead to the problem with community relations and the police, which leads to people living in fear and imprisonment in their own communities. We don't want to forget about the small communities in our entire city of people and push them to the wayside. People are stopped very often, and it's not reported. They're stopped daily, and it's not reported. And to have that harassment to be faced on the ground when you are just walking down your own street is something that we cannot have continue, because it leads to problems such as we have with Jordan Mounds, who the fact of the matter is the young man had nothing on him, period, was doing nothing wrong, but suffered such a severe beating, all because he was stopped. And so the police having to report why they are stopping people is very important, and hopefully will keep them mindful and before they would stop someone. So we at the Alliance for Police Accountability also want to have a police force where the community can feel safe to go to them. I think it is also a very first step in a reduction of crime. To reduce crime, you will have to have people who are comfortable with working with the police. And at this time, we do not have that. And so our crime persists and they go unsolved. And so the community would like this passed, the Alliance for Police Accountability would like this piece of legislation passed, and we are looking forward to having the City Council pass it.
From the Black and White reunion. It was about 15 years ago that there was a crowd, more than 1,000 people, black and white, right around here, protesting the lack of justice in the case of Johnny Gamage. Black and White reunion came out of that with the hope that if we could meet together, we would stop having to meet in crowds to make such a protest. We're here because it looks like we failed. You know, I'm not going to say that the fight for justice has gotten old, but certainly I have in this time. But now, you know, Reverend Burgess and City Council has offered us the possibility of hope. Hope that we will not have to meet together again to protest death, to protest beatings, to protest injustice.
So it's a black and white union's hope and my hope that the council passes this legislation, the city supports this legislation, the mayor enforces this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to have Reverend Dr. James Earl Garment come forward representing the conference, the Baptist Ministers Conference, representing the religious community of the city. I want to mention before I forget that I heard on the news coming in today that there was a $50,000 commitment from council yesterday for a consultant about new hires at the police. Well, I hope they have a psychological degree or degree in psychiatry so we can weed out officers who come to the position to beat and abuse and misuse their awesome authority. Some people should not be in blue uniforms, and they cause the disrespect that some officers get today because the negative officers, unfortunately, the good officers get painted by the brush of the negative officers. So I'm hoping that this $50,000 will be spent, please come forward, will be spent in a way that will help weed out future negative police officers in the city of Pittsburgh. I'm going to ask Reverend Garment if he would speak on behalf of the religious community in his own way.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm the Reverend Dr. J. Earl Garment, Senior Pastor of the Trinity Missionary Baptist Church in Morrisville. I'm here representing as a member of BPEP and CAV, and Tim Stevens as our chairman and leader. And I come representing the Baptist Ministers Conference of Pittsburgh and vicinity. I serve as political analyst for us, and I'm official spokesman for the political action that which we take of the Baptist Ministers Conference of Pittsburgh and vicinity. And my basis for being here is that I personally feel that there was a total injustice done on behalf of Brother Jordan Myers. The fact that our highest court, etc., the Justice Department, in their rendering concerning Jordan Myers, I feel it was just wrong. And therefore, we need to take some kinds of measures that will alleviate that kind of action. As already has been mentioned, there is and has been a kind of a disconnect between the black community and the police department. Now, when you watch their cars and you read certain materials, it says, we serve, we protect, I believe, and we serve. And sometimes we wonder, though, who are they protecting and who are they serving?
Right.
And so, and I think that we've got to get on better ground, get better understanding. And I appreciate Reverend Councilman Burgess for his efforts in trying to pass certain kinds of legislation that's going to make it easier for us to truly become the most livable city in America. One of the things I must say, though, before I close, is that we all know that there are some good policemen on the absolutely. We are aware of that. It's just those bad ones that just seems to just mess up the whole apple cart. And so what we got to do is find ways and means either to constrain them or to hold them accountable for their illicit actions. And so I'm grateful today to be here again on behalf of the Baptist Ministers Conference of Pittsburgh and vicinity, serving as political analyst, just to talk to you to say that I hope that from this kind of meeting here, as we move forward, that we have a better city, a better police department, and a better and a total unity of people working together to make Pittsburgh truly the most livable city in America.
All right. Have any of the young people from Kappa High School come in to the room? Because principal had called me this morning, said a couple would be present. Hold on just a second. I want you, the media people, I want you to look in the face of this young man. I want you to look in the face of his mom and his grandma. You see 3 generations of love. You can see this is not a young man who's going to beat anybody else. You can see this is a man who's not going to take 3 officers on and put them in a hospital. Some things are just obvious. Some things are just obvious. I mentioned it earlier, but since he's here, they're not going to speak. City offers to settle Jordan Miles' lawsuit. I don't want to see it again. I do not want to see it again. Because it shouldn't happen. If it happens again, absolutely, offers should be made. More significant than this one, by the way. But the City of Pittsburgh, who's experiencing financial difficulties, and under, what is that, Act 47? Why are we spending money that we don't have on police officers who are either untrained, mistrained, or just wrong? They ought to be off the police force. Now, I got a call last night from a former Pittsburgh police officer. Know what they said? Interesting. Maybe you all can investigate from the media. Bradley Walker, who happened to be black, was accused of a negative interaction with a white citizen. He did not beat up the white citizen, he beat up his car. My understanding, as of last week or so, there was $150,000 handed out for that victim. That happened rather quickly. The officer was taken off the force, fired. What happened to these 3 who beat him? Why are they not fired? Why are they not fired? Why are they not fired? Think about it. Think about it. Any of the kids come in yet? We're going inside. Did I miss any organization work? Thank you so much. We'll see you inside.